Hello again, my off-road companions. Welcome back to Dirt Obsession, the channel where aging, bearded, overweight men tell you how you should spend your money. Today we're answering a question we get quite a bit, and that question is, what is the best ATV for the price? This question's loaded harder than a cheerleader at an after-party, and one resounding answer would surely not do justice to the complexity and intricacies of all possible choices. So we're going to break this down by price, meaning if I had X amount of dollars to spend, here's what I'd look for first. When making a decision on a wheeler, of course you're going to have to consider where you're going to use it and how you want to ride. Nearly all the machines we're going to consider today will be sport utility machines for a few reasons. The sport utility segment of ATVs is the last standing, truly competitive segment where a variety of manufacturers still haven't given up and packed it in. That makes them comparatively more competitive in price than the sport 4x4s or mud-specific offerings from Polaris and Can-Am. And this is definitely the segment where the most significant value in the power sports market can be found. If you've never owned an ATV before, or you identify on the broke end of the how much money do I have spectrum, you should strongly consider something off the used market. Despite what your broke-ass side-by-side loving friends would have you believe, you don't need to drop 20 to 30K on an active suspension turbo side-by-side to have fun. On the contrary, I'd personally take any machine on this list over any side-by-side if I could only have one machine, because riding is better than driving, and only those who get it will get it. So, show of hands, who's kind of broke? Great. If you're just starting, there's probably no better choice for starting off strong than a Honda 400EX. Well, not as fiery as some of the earlier race-ready offerings from Honda and other OEMs, and definitely not as good as the Raptor 700 at anything. The 400EX is definitely one of those machines that helped harden Honda's legacy of reliability. The 400EX was first released in '99, after a long lull in sport ATVs. It's a four-stroke, which gives it a broad range of forgiving power throughout the RPMs. And it has a forgiving clutch, which is perfect for newer riders and easier to manage in trail conditions. The best part about the 400EX is that it had a decently long run. It has endless aftermarket support, and you can find them in really good condition on the used market for around $3,000. Post 2005 will have reverse, and post 2009 drop the E, making it the 400X. But budget-conscious shoppers should be looking at condition over model year, because the overall platform didn't see many changes. And if $3,000 was my budget, the 400EX or something comparable would be my machine. From here on out, we're going to switch over to the new machines for the sake of argument. Of course, if you wanted to stick with the used market to get something purely for fun, there'd be more offerings at higher and lower price ranges. But for now, moving on. The next price bracket we're going to consider is $5K, and I'd still consider this to be budget conscious, but it's starting to enter the realm of options, and with options comes lies, deceit, and temptation. Avoid that nonsense by looking past the Chinese and Taiwanese garbage. It might be tempting, but it's just not worth it. And oh, by the way, don't bother with Arctic Textron Tracker Cat. Those ATVs feel like the cheap pile of garbage that they are, which is unfortunate because Textron has the means to build something cool. It's what Arctic Cat fans expected when their cautiously optimistic take on the Textron buyout. But so far, Textron has not delivered. So what should we be looking for at this budget? Well, there's three 450cc machines that should be on your radar. That's the Yamaha Kodiak, the Am Outlander, and the Polaris Sportsman 450. The MSRP has these machines all over $6,000, but savvy consumers ignore MSRP. After all, the S stands for suggested, which means the manufacturer is literally telling the dealer, we suggest you take this much from the customer. Always look for sales on last year's models. ATVs are notorious for not seeing any upgrades from year to year, and don't be afraid to ask about manufacturer incentives. Just remember, when buying a new machine, the dealership itself is important, especially through the warranty duration. But I digress. Let's get back to the comparison. Assuming cost was equal, I'd personally go Kodiak, Outlander, and Sportsman in that order. I'd consider the Kodiak the best all-around machine in terms of comfort, nimbleness, power, and capability. The Outlander feels much more powerful than the others, so if pure power is important, tip the scale in that direction. The Sportsman is the most comfortable, especially when just sitting on the machine, but the Kodiak will be the better performer, and although the initial cost may be higher, maintenance costs over the first couple years of ownership will likely level the financial burden. But if the initial price is your primary consideration, and you don't plan on completely abusing the machine, you can probably find the best deal on the Sportsman. In all honesty though, with the price of the 450 class, I'd probably just bump up into the 500 class, because the prices aren't all that much different. And while that is true, I really just needed a clever segue to get to the next category, which is the $7,000 500 class segment. The 7K price point is a sweet spot in ATVs because at $7,000, you're into the 500 class segment where great performance meets value. And again, the rules of savvy consumerism apply, so stay on guard and expect a deal. There's three logical choices yet again in this class, but with Yamaha notably out, Honda is in with the 4-Trax Foreman. And no, not the Rubicon. The price point on that pushes it out of this class value-wise. Rounding out the three is the Outlander and Sportsman 570 models. And I'm not going to reinvent the wheel on this. Dirt Trax declared a winner between the Sportsman 570 and Rubicon to be the Sportsman. And ATV On Demand declared the winner between the 500 class Sportsman and Outlander to be the Outlander. All homage goes to those brilliant deities of off-road knowledge. Far be it from me to disagree, especially when I don't disagree. I don't consider the Honda utility four-wheelers to be fun to ride. I'm not a fan of the electronic shift, and their automatic mode almost never feels like it's in the right gear for performance. Say what you want about rubber band transmissions. They're a lot more fun than push-button shifting, and I personally never have owned one that didn't last multiple thousands of miles. The Outlander's performance on trails in terms of suspension and handling is much better than Polaris commercials would have you believe. And there's just no strong arguments to change my mind about it, although it's important to note that Can-Am did drop the 5-year warranty they used to have on the 500L, but I still think the fact remains that the Outlander is still the victor in this price point in this class. The Outlander outperforms the Sportsman in my opinion. The power discrepancy is just too broad, and the overall Outlander fit and finish and aesthetics are just better in this class. The Kodiak 700 deserves a mention here in terms of build quality, but don't be fooled by the displacement. The Outlander 570 is going to outperform the D-Tune 686 single in the Kodiak, so even though the Kodiak may seem like it should be considered a value in a higher displacement category, it actually matches up better with the machines in this class. We're going to bump the next price category up to $10K, and at this price, the lines get blurred a little more in terms of capability and displacement. This is a crowded market where the Japanese big bores reside, but also the larger displacement options from Can-Am and Polaris are available. Let's assume in order to even the cost playing field that for an ATV of this size, you'd only go with a power steering option, which would definitely be the case for me. Of the slightly lower displacement Japanese models, I've already crowned the Grizzly the winner. The Grizzly, in my opinion, is the best trail riding ATV ever made, but for as good as I think the Grizzly is, I don't think it's the best value in ATVs. It's not all about power. But at this price range, it's hard not to consider the difference between the Outlander and Sportsman giving you about a 30 horsepower boost over the Grizzly, which just makes them more capable overall, and therefore, in my opinion, makes them a better value. So that leaves the Sportsman and Outlander 850, and I gotta be honest, if we weren't comparing power steering versions, the Sportsman would be the victor here, but since we are, the Outlander 850 DPS gets a significant upgrade over the Sportsman, and that's the ITP Terracross tires. Both machines have cast aluminum wheels, and the Sportsman 850 Premium has painted plastics, but for a value, I'd take the Terracross tires and the $400 cheaper price tag on the Outlander any day. The last price bracket we're going to consider is going to be unlimited. I'm rich, bitch! If price is no concern, you just want to rip as hard as possible, there's really only one choice, and that's the Can-Am Renegade XXC 1000. Out of the box, the thing is nearly race ready, with all the essentials and very few luxuries. Can-Am clutching is aggressive, and nothing feels more powerful than the 976cc Rotax. Power hits hard on the low end and stays hard throughout the range. Just be warned, you'll be covered in mud and have crazy arm pump by the end of the day. The Can-Am is the most powerful and aggressively clutched machine on the market, but the Tri-Mode DPS offers the least amount of assist on any power steering equipped machine. Fortunately, it's perfectly capable of letting you steer with your thumb. The over 35 crowd might be happier with the Outlander XTP or XXC for a few of those luxury items that the Renegade lacks. And of course, there's always the classless Sportsman and Scrambler S model. Those look super enticing for those of us uninhibited by trail restrictions. But as of this point, I have not yet slung leg over one of those behemoths, and I'm a little concerned that the general consensus is that they feel more like a side-by-side in terms of handling. But I can vouch for the premium Can-Ams, and those machines are the ultimate in terms of performance. At least for now. Thanks so much for sticking it out this far in the video. Remember, if you're shopping for an ATV, be a savvy consumer. Shop around, ask for incentives. If you don't like my picks, let me hear about it in the comments. Just remember, any ATV is better than no ATV, and I'd happily ride any one of the machines I mentioned if the price was right and the dealer had a certain je ne sais quoi, because those are very important aspects of buying a new machine. If you're in Central Kentucky area, consider checking out Extreme Sports in Litchfield. That's where Flying Brian got his Outlander, and those guys were critical to us having all the information we needed to make this video happen. Remember, the dealerships are important, and Extreme Sports in Litchfield, they'll get you taken care of.